On my YouTube page, I have a community post where we're talking about feminism and the rights that we have won in this country. The rights that we have won are fairly new. There are women that are still alive today in the United States that actually had to wait until the rights that we have were won, like to get bank accounts, to get access to credit cards, to have access to their own bodies, because in effect, we were owned, we were property of either our fathers or our husbands. Now, if we want to go back to that time frame, we were born in the exact right time, in the right place, being born in the United States. Many countries of women and girls do not own themselves. They are property of their fathers or their husbands, and they can effectively be traded or sold to a man. They're basically a cow or a goat in their country, and they have no rights. Now, I'm reading, or just finished reading a book called The Kabul Beauty School. And in this book, this woman, Debbie Rodriguez, was speaking about why she was so passionate about having a beauty school. And it's because many of these girls and women did not have opportunities. In this passage right here that I'm going to read, because I will read the whole thing, she's talking about why she needs to give this woman an opportunity to learn how to be a beautician. So let's read this. She says, when I heard Behar's story, I realized I had to help her get free from her crazy husband. Like so many women, she was still threatened by terrorism, even though the Taliban were gone. She faced it daily from the man she had married. Now, keep in mind, this was early 2000s. This was not like right now, since the Taliban has come and taken over again. She says, I think that he had once been a good husband and that she had loved him. They lived with his parents, who were quite old, and Behar happily cared for his parents as well as their two children. Her husband had been a police officer in Kabul before the Taliban came to power, and they let him stay on the job. But this quickly turned out to be very tough for him. He was often required to enforce their ridiculous edicts about white shoes and music and such. Worse, he had to stand by and watch as the Taliban brutalized men and women for the tiniest infractions and help maintain order during public unalivings. At some point, he ran afoul of a group of Taliban, and they turned on him, and they beat him so badly that he suffered a brain injury that caused all kinds of complications, depression, memory loss, and uncontrolled rage. He couldn't work anymore. He became a monster. He'd lock Behar and their children in one of the rooms in the family house and leave sometimes for days. His parents were in the rest of the house, but they were so senile, they didn't notice anything was wrong. There was still food in the house, so the parents foraged and fed themselves. But Behar and the children had nothing to eat. Worse still, Behar was pregnant with their third child. Her husband locked her up without food so often that the baby was starving in her womb. He beat her often too. There was no one she could turn to for help, certainly not their Taliban overlords, since they never thought wives had valid grievances against husbands. Behar's third child was born with disabilities, doubtless because of this abuse. She is 6 years old and still can't walk. Understand that when giving men extreme control over women's lives, where women cannot work, where women cannot control their own finances, their own reproductive systems, this is what could happen. But there are certain women who still buy into the patriarchy and want to strip women of their rights simply because they do not believe in how they want to live, how other women want to live. So this is one story. Hold, please. So this next student that Debbie Rodriguez is trying to get into her school is actually married to a Taliban person. And so let's hear a little bit about their story. Nahida had come to them and begged them to help her become a student at the beauty school. She had heard about the school from a relative who lived in Kabul. She was desperate to attend and then open her own salon in Herat. Her biggest obstacle was neither distance nor money. It was her husband. The NGO had scrambled to figure out a way to appease her husband and make it possible for Nahida to attend the school. They talked to her relatives in Kabul, who promised Nahida and her husband and their child could go live with them for free. The NGO also promised to send her to business management classes and help her open her salon in Herat. All of this was starting to sound pretty good to her husband, who wasn't working at the time, but he was concerned about the moral atmosphere at the beauty school and the character of the people running it. So the NGO wanted me to let them stay at the Peacock Manor for a week to reassure the husband on both counts. Talk about pressure. I had only about a week to make sure the guest house was running smoothly enough to accommodate guests, and especially to assure the husband that I was showing the proper reverence for the ways Afghan did things. The guest house was missing a lot of things when we took over. It had beds but no pillows and blankets, pans but no glasses. Worst of all, it was missing a teapot and teacups. There was almost nothing more important to an Afghan than tea. Sam and I had went shopping for this stuff, but I had no idea what to buy, and I had no idea about how going about making tea once I got everything back to the guest house. I was used to boiling water and dumping in a tea bag, but I knew Afghans went through much more elaborate process to make tea. They could all tell by the taste if it had been done right. I was really getting nervous about this week when Nahida and her husband and the tea making was the first big hurdle. Now, keep in mind, if a woman is this anxious about making tea for a guest, what could possibly go through these women's mind who are married to these people, how the slightest thing could impact their health and well-being? I'm going to skip a little bit and go to this page. The next day, Nahida had to attend a business seminar at the Ministry of Commerce. Sam had to go off to work, and her husband had to stay at the Peacock Manor with me while I was trying to fix up the space for the school. I tried to be polite when we were in the same room, but he turned away abruptly every time he saw me. I think he was alarmed that I had the gall to leave my head uncovered in my own house. As the day went on, he grew more and more agitated. After the Ministry of Commerce called, I approached the husband cautiously and tried to explain the problem. He just scowled at my feeble Dari. So I phoned Sam and told him what was going on. You talk to him, I begged, and then handed the phone to the Talib. He held my phone to his ear for a few seconds, then snapped it shut and dropped it on the table. I thought he was going to hit me, but then Nahida ran in the door and began to speak to him breathlessly. He lunged for her before she was able to remove her shoes and dragged her up to the room, and I phoned Sam again. You have got to come back right now. She's going to get the snot kicked out of her. She was late because there was traffic. That's the part that I skipped out on. And like I was saying before, just the simplest things can set these people off, and women have no recourse in some of these countries. In this book, Kabul Beauty School, Debbie Rodriguez speaks on many of the narratives that women went through. And I'm glad that she was able to bring some of their stories out, because it's not just simply about a beauty school. It's about giving women the opportunity to do something creative and socialize with other women. And I know some people take some of our rights for granted, but some people, some women, some girls in other countries have no hope. They have everything squashed from them because they were born with a uterus, and they could be bought and sold, and they could be treated however these people who have bought them chooses to, because they have no rights to their body. Now, in the United States, we still have rights, and they are tenuous because some people still want to take them away from us. But if you are unaware of the rights that were won and the rights that some people still don't have, it's a lot easier to take them for granted. If you did not have to participate in fighting for these rights, which women clawed bit by bit, it's a lot easier to take them for granted because we were born with them. And so I share some of these stories simply because I want us to not take them for granted. So you guys go ahead, jump in the comment section and let me know what you think. Like, comment, share. Okay, I just read a passage talking about the Kabul Beauty School. I read a couple of narratives of what it was like to be a woman in Afghanistan. And it is so important to understand the narratives of women from the perspective of women. Now, the book that I read was written some 20 years ago, and hearing about the restrictions and how women are treated, and then seeing this woman post a video that is talking about what she is still facing, or what Afghanistan women are still facing right now in 2023, should be jarring. So watch the video where I was reading some passages about Kabul Beauty School, and then juxtapose it with right now, what this woman is showing right now. So you can see that women and children are still facing such desperate treatment. We're still second class citizens in some places. And so that is the reason why we still have got to continue our fight to keep the rights that we have in our respective countries, and recognize that other women and girls are essentially goats and cows in other countries. So watch this woman's clip.
For a while, they were able to go in Afghanistan. This music is illegal because all music is illegal. This music is illegal too. So how are we listening to it? We'd have to turn it off before we got to any checkpoints. This is also illegal. I was not allowed to go out without wearing hijab outside the privacy of my own home or hotel room. I only took my hijab off because I was on a mountain in the middle of nowhere and no one could see me. This is also illegal for me because women are no longer allowed in parks. For a while, they were able to go on certain days of the week, but now they are completely banned. I was in Afghanistan in October of 2022. So much has changed even since then. This is also illegal. You cannot take photos of the Taliban or anything to do with government structures. But do you know what's not illegal? Forcing thousands of people to move out to these barren lands in displaced homes. Legally mandating hijab but saying that it's greatly recommended. And banning women and girls from most schools. This is your reminder that although I haven't been in Afghanistan for a few months, the people of Afghanistan are still suffering. Rules continue to get stricter and come down on women, barring them from mosques, parks, and most public places. Don't forget about the Afghan people. Everything